Today's the 23rd of August. What pears we haven't picked are filling out very nicely. We picked 2 big boxes of pears and left the smaller ones on the tree, and they are growing very nicely. These look very good, like we could go ahead and pick them. Some aren't quite as big. Wouldn't hurt to leave them for a few more days. We just don't want them all falling on the ground. So I picked up a few last night. Here's another one that fell this morning. And put it in the box. When we pick up the pears off of the ground, we put them in a box separate from the ones we pick off the tree because they'll probably be bruised. This is our bruised box. And that one's pretty bruised. I set it on top just to deal with it so it doesn't get messy down in. As you can see, some are starting to ripen down in there, and we'll have to sort those. They're not the fanciest pears. Here's the other box of pears we picked off the ground, and they're all ripe. These 2 boxes of pears we picked off of the tree. There will be some that have problems just from the worms because we don't spray them. As you can see, they're starting to ripen, especially this box here, and they'll need to be sorted. We'll take every pear out of the box and move them to a different box and sort out the green from the ripe ones and begin canning them. We got out some of our jars. Just inventorying what's left here, what's available for canning. We picked up some pint jars, which we haven't used much in the past, but we're in our 60s now and we don't use quite as much in a meal, and we may start using pint jars, especially for the corn, beans, salsa, things where we don't want such a large jar. I also have 42 2-quart jars. We use those for grape juice. We've been gone for 3 days, and the blackberries are ripe again. Time to pick. And I would say they're not quite done. Now, you can still see some that are far from ripe. So probably another week in the 90-degree temperature and the blackberry patch will be done. That's my guess. Right into September. A lot of the big, huge berries are done. They're kind of harder to find now, and when that starts to happen, then there's some ripe ones on this side. Down underneath there's going to be a couple nice ones, but when it starts to be smaller berries all around, then we know that it's starting to slow down. Some of these berries on top are just burnt all across there. Just burned up from the sun. Just gets too much heat. We have another patch of blackberries on this other side. Under the apple tree, we have some blackberries that were planted as an experimental garden, and they're ripening. I mean, they've been ripening same time as the others because most of them are the same variety, and you can see some hanging there. Blackberries back in here. There's some ripe ones. A lot of ripe ones. A little bit smaller variety on the Chester and the Satin. They're mixed in. More Triple Crown out on this end. Then up front, the fall crop of Prelude raspberries is in full swing. Look at those. Today's being the 23rd of August. these primocane are fruiting on the prelude. They're just loaded. Look at all the berries there. Down underneath, you can see some of the first ones are starting to ripen, like that. Out on the tips. There's some up in here. I feel stickers. Yeah. It's interesting. That's a raspberry cane and it's stickery. So the preludes have a few little stickers on them, but they're not, super bad. The apples are starting to color. They're just loaded. This limb over here, I'm almost worried I should prune back so it doesn't break the tree. These have been thinned a little bit on this side already. This is a green and red, splotchy red apple. I haven't tried to look up the variety. The next tree over is more of a solid red and green. Still two color. I don't think they're the same variety. The one makes a little bit different color applesauce than the other. Our peach trees we bought this spring are still in their pots. The bare root ones we took out of their bags and put them in pots. And we have some tomatoes we planted in pots. These are better bush tomatoes. And our apricot tree is about 7 feet tall, still in a pot from 3 years ago because it's a full-size tree, and I don't think I want to plant a full-size tree. So we actually have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We can only plant maybe 8 trees, peach trees, and the other 1 or 2 extras. I'm going to use the cane. See how this is grafted right here? There's a graft. I'm going to cut that, and I'm going to take a branch off of this apricot tree and graft it to the root stock of the peach tree, and it should grow then a semi-dwarf tree. I'll do that when things cool down, either this fall or next spring. Probably next spring would be best. I have different sized tomatoes and they're all ripening. All better bush, but in different sized pots just to see how well they performed. And this was just loaded. Look at all the fruit on there. They're not a very big tomato. The tomatoes are only 2 inches, 3 inches around, 2 inches. So at the beginning of the top of our garden here, the garden goes 60 feet wide all the way down to Genesee Street, down there. That's 150 feet. At the top of the garden we have broccoli back in there. Behind the shop here, that's where we put the broccoli this year. And we harvested 15 gallons of broccoli in the main crop, and we put it in gallon Ziploc bags and put it in the freezer. Then everything went to seed in the heat. So in the next week or so, it's pretty cool this morning, and so in the next week or so we should be able to cut all this off, cut all that off, all that seed stock off, and it will start making broccoli again. You can see a few trying down in here. There's one that's not too bad, but they're pretty rough looking. The seed stalks are 2 feet tall. Our friend has a project here where he's trying to root all of the seascape strawberry runners. Some are planted in dirt, but some are just in cups in water. back here, mostly in the shade. A little bit of sun in the morning and evening, but mostly in the shade. At the back end of this project, our beehive is a little bit inactive this morning because of the heat. It's cool enough outside. I see a bee just go in now, but there's a couple of bees coming and going. Yeah, it's not terribly cold, but it's pretty cool compared to what we're used to. See some activity there. Our heritage raspberries. There's only one plant here that's very active. The rest got tilled up and where we planted the broccoli. Yet you can still see how totally amazingly productive heritage is. These are nice big berries. They're probably a 3 or 4 gram berry. Totally loaded. The fall crop being produced here on a brand new cane that just came up this year. The first row of garden out here beyond our blackberries. Look at our blackberries, aren't they pretty? This is our new row of blackberries between the two trellis posts. Right down here is our new row of blackberries we planted this spring. And some of these canes are producing like crazy. Look at all those. Whoop, whoop. I'll eat that one. Then we have banana squash back in there. You can see those big, huge banana squash. It's 2 feet long. That one's not quite 2 feet long. There's some butternuts. They aren't ripe at all this year. I mean, yet this year. The butternut ripen, they turn golden color later in the year. There's some acorn squash. And then we see spaghetti squash. Here's an acorn. Pretty good size squash, actually. Bigger than I thought they were. This is probably 8 to 9 inches across. There's lots of spaghetti squash in there. Yeah, and there, the yellow ones are ripe. And we could go ahead and pick and use those. Then we have yellow straight necks and green zucchini. You see zucchini down there on that plant. Some of these blackberries are on the ground. They grow laterally or horizontally, and we actually need them to be vertical. So on this trellis post, let's see, over here we have a hole for a wire up about 2 feet. And then at 4 feet and a half feet or so, we have another hole. And we need to actually run a wire and then tie these up so they're growing vertically for next year's picking, because all of the ones that are growing flat out on the ground, they'll have fruit on them next year, and that won't be fun. They'll all be in the dirt if we don't get them up on wire. So this project needs to happen in the next week or so. The ranch raspberries are done. We actually gave them a huge haircut. They were 10 feet tall and 10 feet wide. We gave them a haircut. Now they're just over 4 feet tall. Same with the canbies. The canbies are done at the same time, the end of July. Gave them a haircut. The potatoes are starting to brown out. You can see the Norland Reds. We've been digging because they're real brown. The Yukon Gold right here, the Pontiac Red, and the russets on the end are still fairly green. The Seascaped strawberries are in full production again. Second summer crop. There are tons of strawberries in there. And the plants are getting big enough that you have to kind of pull things back to see them. Get all the fruit. Lots of fruit. Here's a fun one. Every inch of those plants has fruit on it, all down the row. Our cucumbers are producing. You see cucumbers? There's an Armenian one. These are slicers, straight eights, Sumters, munchers, and homemade pickles. To the end are slicing tomatoes. You see our cherry tomato, Sweet 100, is producing. And all of the tomatoes are starting to ripen. This tomato is 6 feet tall, so is this one. These next two either got sick or they're maybe a determinate style, but they're only 3.5 feet tall. Same with this one. These three are 6 feet. There's a couple of shorter ones. These are Better Boy, Big Boy, Better Beef. They're all 6 feet tall. I have a couple of shorter. I'm guessing those are the three celebrity in here, maybe 4 celebrity. I couldn't read the tag. The tag is so faded. I have a video, so I know which ones they are. I just need to look them up. And then the last two, these are huge. Those are 7 feet tall, and those are Champion 2. And they're probably a 3-inch tomato, all ripening now. I'll turn this water off. You can see we're running our water at 20 pounds pressure. The little pressure reducers down below. These little pancake things right there actually reduce it from 20 to 10 so that the drip tape that comes off of there is just like a Ziploc bag so that it doesn't blow out. It's only supposed to operate at 8 pounds pressure. We'll turn him off. She's been running all night. And the Polana raspberries are ripe. We'll be picking tomorrow. Got a whole row of those. We have another row of tomatoes, and most of these were supposed to be paste tomatoes. And I may have had extra variety that I planted down here on the end that weren't paste tomatoes, because these are more of a round, these look like hillbilly, the crinkly ones. And I don't see the tags yet. I'll have to do a better video. Yeah, these are paste tomatoes. You can see the pear shape on them. We have Pasta Mama, or a Big Mama paste tomato, Amish paste, La Romas. Look at the size of that guy. That must be a Big Mama. Wow, look at the size of that guy. It's bigger than my hand. And then Romas. These 3 front ones are Romas, and they got sick and died. I'm not sure if the drip tape irrigation line got kinked, or if they're maybe getting too much water, and sometimes, you know, they just wilt from disease. Next to these, we have a row of Autumn Britain, and they're in full production. That's a nice fruit set. Tons of berries all down the row. Wow. They're a good sized berry. That's at least 3 grams. You can see we haven't been here, so they're ripening. Almost too ripe. Starting to fall off of the vine, but they're just loaded. Autumn Britain only grow 4 feet tall, maybe 5 at the most. Next to that row, we have our Primark Freedom ever-bearing raspberries. Or I mean, sorry, blackberries. You can see this is all new growth because we dug all the blackberry plants out last year. And there's one that's ripe already. There's another one down there that's ripe. They produce on first-year canes. This cane is only 4 feet tall. This one's 8 feet tall, 6, 7 feet tall, and it's got some green berries on it. These are starting to ripen. That cane is 4 feet tall, but they were actually dug out. Like there wasn't any canes at all here last fall. We thought we'd gotten rid of all of them, but you know, the roots grow back. Here's a huge fruit set on this cane. That's 5 feet tall. They need to be up on wires. So I have a wooden post at that end and a wooden post at this end. And I'll put up a wire this week and get these tied so they're more straight up and not laying out here on the ground or growing so sideways. The pepper row, these are 3 and 4 feet high. The bell peppers are probably 3 feet or less. The poblanos though, these are 3 foot tall. These are jalapenos. Then we have a couple of Anaheims. Anaheims are just loaded. Look at all of peppers. Tons of peppers. And I think Christy's been picking, she's been picking the jalapenos. There's still a lot on there. And these little bushes are nowhere near the size of the ones we had in our yard over near the house, with hundreds of jalapeno peppers on each one. You can see the Anaheims are turning colors. We've already picked quite a few red ones. There's a big one right there. The poblanos, we've been picking and grilling. Stuffed peppers. They're so mild and very, very tasty. The poblanos are really nice peppers. Then we have baby bells. We've never grown before. This must be an orange variety. I see red on the other side of it, so I guess it doesn't matter. Red down in there. You see orange, but baby bells. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 baby bells. And then orange, red, yellow, and green bell peppers. This must be a red variety. That's as big as my hand. These are greens, reds, orange. Between the peppers and the grapes, we planted some, I believe these are turnips back in here, but never got weeded. I mean, to a point I weeded them, but didn't keep up with them, so. Then we have onions, the few onions that grew, and some beets and carrots down on the end. Here at the end of the Autumn Britain row, let's see, is it Autumn Britain? No, at the in front of the blackberry row we have a lemon tree. You see the lemons? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 9 lemons on there. Then we have some blueberry bushes, 4 blueberry bushes, some Schisandra vines, and some strawberries in there. more blueberry here. We weeded those last week. I need to finish weeding this little section here. Grass gets really big. This lemon tree we will have to dig up in the fall because it won't survive the winter, but I can pull it out. It's just sitting here at the end of the blackberries. This row of grapes starts on this end, on the far end here, starts with some flame seedless. Then we have a number of flame, maybe 3 or 4 flames in there. We also have one green emerald. The rest of all of these are concords now. And they're 7 feet tall without even trying. This is at least 7 and 8 feet tall right here. And the grapes, these have been in 2 or 3 years, and they're pretty good sized grapes already. The bunches aren't huge, but next year we should have a nice fruit set where the age is then more mature. Yeah, I haven't gone back in here to look for grapes at all. They're pretty thin this year. Yeah, a little bit thin back in there, but it's really hard to tell till the lines die down. Then we have a full 60-foot row of beans. These are bush blue lake beans, and we've been picking. Christy's been picking. We canned 14 quarts and 8 pints. 7 pints of beans already. In the one canner, we used 1 pint of corn to fill in. We don't have enough beans, but they're ready to be picked again. They're pretty flexible. They don't need to be, picked exactly on a certain day. But there's another canner full of beans there now easily. This is our brand new row of himbo top raspberries. We just planted these this spring and they're loaded. They're just totally loaded. This is all brand new cane. There's an old cane, it's done. It should be cut out. But the new canes are producing tons of raspberries. It's just solid red all down the row, with berries still coming, blossoms still blooming. The peas are done, and we tilled those. These are 9 feet tall, at least 8 feet tall. Or autumn, or not the Suffolk red. This is Suffolk red. Down by the street we have some flowers I finally weeded. I didn't weed perfect, but I got most of the weeds out. You can still see a little bit of grass in there. The artichokes are in full bloom. Some have finished blooming. These are done blooming, and they're just continuing to go to seed. But last night I came out and the bees were crawling way down inside where you couldn't see the bees. That's really pretty blue color. We should have plenty of seeds from all of these this year. Marigolds, nasturtiums, zinnias, doing very well. Up above the plants here you'll see some cantaloupe we uncovered, and now that they can see the sun they should do a little bit better. They're not very big, but there's lots of little 4-inch, 3 and 4-inch cantaloupes in there. These zinnias are 4 feet tall. And our sunflowers. Wake up, sunflowers. The sun's coming up. The sun has been coming up totally orange. because of wildfire smoke and going down totally orange. Let me see the flowers from this angle. I discovered that the water system right here on the end had been slightly plugged, and debris gets down in the end of the line here and then plugs the opening to the valve that goes down that direction. And so none of these sunflowers, none of these 4 drip lines were getting very much water. And now they get water. You can see they soaked out just fine last night. I opened up the end of the drip system here, the drip main, and flushed all that junk out of there and tapped the lines so that these are now putting out the water that they need to. But these sunflowers are only half the size they should be. We got busy this summer and didn't pay much attention to them, but they're still happy looking, just not as big as they could be. I see some nice grapes hanging here. Yeah, those are really pretty. Lots of grapes back in there, starting to turn pink. Yep, they're a dark pink grape, juice grape, seedless table grape. We use them for juice and eating, but you can't eat them all. Okay, just across the way, oh, we can see our little cantaloupe starting to form. They're 4 and 5 inches, all down the row. Off the end of our main garden here, there's an access road, but across the road we have 1 pumpkin left. It has a couple of pumpkins in there, turning orange already. And our corn, we planted 5 rows or 6 rows of corn and only 2 germinated. And there's plenty of ripe ones. If we can't eat them, I'll can them. I'll put them in the little pint jars and we'll can them up, using Jerry's canners he brought over last week. There's some dill back here. You see the dill? A whole section of dill. I'm not sure what this is supposed to be. I think it's supposed to be okra, but they didn't come up. And the baby okra is hiding down here. It's growing, but it should be 4 feet tall. It's not growing very fast. These himbo top have been producing. Look at all the berries in there. We'll pick those tomorrow and put a ton of fruit in the freezer. Our freezer is about full, so we've considered actually canning raspberries.